Hello and welcome to WTNB Today. I'm your host, Wendy Benton. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I want to thank our sponsor, led-gear.com. If you have lighting or staging needs, please visit their website, led-gear.com. We've got a great show today, but before we get started, let's take a quick look at our calendar of events sponsored by Southeast Crossroads Magazine. You can pick one of those up in area retailers. On March 9th, the quilting class will begin at the Museum Center at 5 Points at 6 p.m. Members are $5 and non-members are $8. On March 12th through the 14th, Stitches in Time is also at the Museum Center at 5 Points. Thursday and Friday, that will be from 10 to 7, Saturday 10 to 4. On March 14th, Daughters of Excellence at God's Lighthouse Tabernacle, that's at 10 a.m. for their TV taping at 304 20th Street Southeast. March 17th is St. Patrick's Day, a lot of fun that day, and Eat Your Art Out is also going on in Cleveland at area restaurants until April the 20th, so please don't miss out. Visit the local area restaurants. You can find those at eatyourartoutcleveland.com and purchase some of the art that goes to the artist. 50% goes to the artist and 50% goes to the Greenway Public Arts Committee to put art back on the Greenway. I also want to congratulate Tennessee Christian Preparatory's men's and women's basketball teams for bringing home the championship in the finals last week in the SCAA conference, and they fought long and hard, had a great season, and the Hawks and Lady Hawks won their overall tournament. It's the first time in the school's history that that's been done by the men's and the ladies teams, so congratulations to them. Congratulations to Coach Frank Walker and Coach Heather Carver and her assistant Natalie Calfee. We've got a great show lined up for you talking about Stitches in Time. We have Joy Veenstra, wanted to make sure I got that name right, and Miss Susan Hyder here to talk about quilting and the quilt show coming up this week. They will be with me as my guest in just a moment when we come right back.
Have you heard about the new WTNB deals around town? No? Well, then let me tell you all about it. Deals Around Town airs right here on WTNB Monday evenings at 7 p.m. I watch it because it features great local restaurants from right here in our area. And better yet, I can get 25, 50, even 75% off on these places when I just call in and buy a gift certificate. That's right, I just call in during the show and pick from dozens of deals. Rumor has it that WTNB Deals Around Town is growing and growing, so much so that they may be adding another night of savings. I've even heard that they will soon add even more places, and not just restaurants. We're talking kids fun, massages, who knows what will turn up. Remember, it's Monday evenings at 7 p.m. only on WTNB.
I believe that whatever we're facing, whatever difficulties, whatever challenges, whatever obstacles, that this word speaks to that. If you simply just have this word and you read this word and you allow it to sink into your heart, God will speak to you.
Nestled comfortably at 2270 Candies Lane Northwest, Relics Antiques and Vintage Decor offers a very unique blend of furniture and accessories. Relics Antiques and Vintage Decor is always buying and selling quality antique and vintage items in the Cleveland area. We are always interested in reviewing the antiques that you want to sell. Come to our location today and sample the diverse exhibition of antiques at Relics Antiques and Vintage Decor.
Welcome back to the show. I also want to welcome our guest, Joy Veenstra. She is the Curator of Education at the Museum Center at 5 Points, and Susan Hyder, who is the owner, operator, and quilter extraordinaire of Hyder Hangout, the quilt, fabric, and more shop. Ladies, welcome. Thank you for being our guest today. And we're here to talk about the upcoming quilt show at the Museum Center that of course, Joy, that you're coordinating, and Susan, that you're very involved in. But before we get into the details of that, if you all don't care to share a little bit about your history with our audience, that's typically how we start the show, just so our viewers can get to know you and who you are. So Joy, if you don't care to tell us your background and story.
Sure. So I've lived in Cleveland since I was 4 years old. And went to Mayfield Elementary and Bradley Jr., that doesn't exist anymore, and then Walker Valley, and moved away up to Johnson City, Tennessee to go to Milligan College, and then came back here for a year, worked at the Cleveland Public Library, and then went to grad school up at Johns Hopkins, up D.C., Baltimore area, and worked in D.C. during that time. It was my first big museum job up there at the National Law Enforcement Museum and Memorial. And then through a series of awesome events, I was able to meet the director of the museum here, the Museum Center at 5 Points, Hassan Najjar, and I met him, and when a position opened up down here, he got in touch, and I was able to get in here and get down here. And moved back home.
Yes.
My whole family is here, and so I'm happy to be back in Cleveland. I've been here for a year and a half now, as the Curator of Education, and I love Cleveland.
And what made you want to be a curator in a museum?
Well, as I said, I worked at the Cleveland Public Library for a while, and I thought that was the route I wanted to take. And when I was looking at graduate programs for library work, I didn't like them. So I started thinking, well, what other environments can I do this informal education? Can I, be around collections? Can I, work with people in a nonprofit type environment kind of thing? And I was like, I want to work in a museum. And so I did my research and found out, okay, well, there's actually a degree for that. There's a Master of Arts in Museum Studies, and found a program and got in and found a job.
That's exciting. Right. Well, and I've never thought about that before, how, curators become curators, or the path that you take.
Yeah. For me, in education, it's a little bit different. If you wanted to be a curator of a particular collection or specialty area, you may go to school for history in that area, or even preservation or things like that. But for me, I have a general museum studies degree with a focus in education. So informal education, object-based learning, project-based learning, hands-on learning, all that kind of stuff is my specialty, and we do a lot of those kind of programs at the museum as well.
Okay, and we're going to let you talk about some of those in just a few minutes, but Miss Susan, tell us about you.
Oh boy. Well, I started sewing when I was 6, and when I was about 8 or 9, I had a Barbie doll that had 500 outfits that I had hand sewn, pretty much. My step-grandmother, who was visiting from Costa Rica when I was 12, taught me how to quilt. Funny story is I don't have that quilt anymore because in the middle of the night it wasn't good enough for me, and I cut it up into million pieces and threw it away. And she got up the next. We were supposed to quilt it the next morning, and the top wasn't good enough. So she got up the next morning and wondered where it was, and it was in the trash. And I wish I had it so I could show beginning quilters that you come a long way. Throughout my life, I had, continued to as a hobby. I went into fire rescue healthcare for a few years. There was a while when my sons were young that I did sewing, and then I ended up with a sewing factory for about 8 years. And then we moved up here to teach at a Christian boarding academy up in Dayton. And I've been in Tennessee ever since. Love it. The way I got to Cleveland is my current husband is native of Sail Creek, and he wanted to be close enough to family that he could visit, but not so close that they could be in your daily business. So that's how we ended up in Cleveland. We found a house. Love the area, love Cleveland. It's wonderful, love the people. About 12 years ago, I started an online fabric store. Then in my basement 6 years ago, had a cloth store with a big, huge sign outside. I had my hours, but nobody wanted to come because they were afraid they were going to interrupt my day. And for 6 months there, and then I moved to downtown, a small shop, and we always teased when we were in the closet because it was 600 or less square foot. Then the current shop that I'm in is 3,000, but we're not using quite that much yet. But been there 5 years and love it. We have quilting classes. We've got all kinds of clubs. We have about five clubs that meet. Saturday night we had Quilt Till You Wilt. Love quilting, love everything about it, love the quilting people. Wonderful.
And Quilt Till You Wilt is kind of a, you mentioned that it was like a slumber party for quilters.
They bring potluck. They sew until we get tired, and we stayed till 11 on Saturday night. There were 6 of us, and they work on their projects or help each other, and mostly just women supporting each other and talking about what they want to talk about.
And you're located across from First Street Square.
Right.
Your shop now, and which is right there around right off Inman Street and across from Bond Life. And
yeah, we can see the museum from our, and I send people over there all the time and say, well, when you're through here, you want to go see the museum, and so we can see that. And
yes.
And I love downtown because it's growing. It is so wonderful. There's so many neat restaurants and little shops.
Right. There's a lot to see and so much that's offered in our downtown area. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the quilting show that's coming up this week at the museum. So we will be right back.
Cameron Company Medical Equipment, conveniently located at 175 Sequoia Road in Cleveland, offers a large array of durable medical equipment from power wheelchairs and scooters to walk-in tubs and hospital beds. Cameron Company Medical Center also offers home and portable oxygen systems, diabetic testing supplies, manual wheelchairs, stair and wheelchair lifts, as well as home wheelchair ramps. We also have state-of-the-art portable ramps and carriers for all of your wheelchair needs. We also offer service and repairs for our products and most of your existing equipment if needed. Our friendly and professional staff can take care of any of your medical billing needs. Cameron Company Medical Equipment has become a leader in our industry with a reputation to give the best of everything that we offer. For questions and information, please give us a call at 423-614-5962. Cameron Company Medical Equipment, Sales, Service, and Repair. We make medical equipment affordable.
The Cleveland Housing Authority's mission is to provide affordable, safe, and sanitary housing opportunities to low-end and moderate-income families. Flexible monthly rental options are available, so contact us today to see if you qualify for premier housing from the Cleveland Housing Authority. Visit www.clevelandhousingauthority.com or call us 423-479-9659.
Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast in Cleveland is the place to find quality pre-owned cars and trucks. Kyle offers on-the-spot financing on all vehicles on the lot. Each pre-owned vehicle goes through a complete inspection to make sure each car and truck meets the Kyle Motors standard. Warranty and extended warranties available on all vehicles. Kyle Motors will sell you a car or truck that you will be proud to drive for many years to come. See Tony, Bill, Dale, James, or David and let them put you in your next quality pre-owned vehicle. Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast. Phone 790-7100.
Hi, I'm Samantha Young, Managing Editor of Southeast Crossroads Magazine, our area's newest and free monthly publication. We focus on events, people, and culture of our area. Pick one up at over 200 locations in Bradley, Hamilton, McMinn, Meigs, and Polk counties, or check us out online at southeastcrossroads.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with Joy and Susan about quilting and the upcoming quilt show that's going to be at the Museum Center this week, and quilting classes also. Joy, do you want to speak about that and when the Stitches in Time begins?
Yeah, so Stitches in Time is the annual quilt show, and this year it's a big 3-day event, and it starts this Thursday, and we're going to have extended hours at the museum for the show. So Thursday, March 12th, and Friday, March 13th, will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And on Saturday, we'll be open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then the award ceremony will be at 4 p.m. And the reason the awards are at the end and not the beginning as usual is because all of the voting for our 4 categories and for our Viewer's Choice Award is going to be done by the public that comes to see the show. So there's going to be an opportunity for everybody that comes to vote on their favorites, and those are going to be our ribbon winners this year. And to support the show and to promote quilting and learning to quilt, we're having a beginning quilting class Monday, March 9th at 6 p.m. at the museum. There's still some spots left. So if you want to sign up for that show, you can, that class, you can call the museum today. It's 339-5745, and talk to me, Joy, and I'll get you signed up for that class on Monday.
Okay, will that be an ongoing class?
No, it's just a one-time beginning quilting. So you're going to learn the very basics of what is a quilt and how do you put it together, and kind of look at all the steps involved and learn some of the basics of the beginnings of it. And then if you want to get more involved, you can head on over to Susan's shop, and she's got lots of classes all year round and lots of opportunities to learn a lot more. But we want to provide the opportunity to kind of introduce people, and we'll provide all the materials and just get signed up for that.
Okay, so they don't have to bring anything.
Nope.
Just if they have an interest in quilting at all, come Monday, March 9th, and to the museum, or call you first.
Yeah.
Sign up and grab a spot, and just to see if it's something, a hobby you might want to pick up, and then they can go from there. And so you've got everything they need to have. So real quickly, before we talk to Susan about her classes, also you were talking about the public coming in and voting. Is that something they will do like with ballots or paper, voting process as they come in and view the quilts?
I'm honestly not entirely sure what the process is going to be for that. Our curator of collections is handling that process, but it'll be clear when you come in. You'll have the opportunity to vote in our 4 categories, which are contemporary quilt, antique quilt, small quilt, and group quilt. And you vote in each of those categories, and then also just for the general Mary Ruth Hale Viewer's Choice Award. and that's the big one,
Okay.
the big winner. And that quilt actually, we offer to that quilter that we hang that quilt in the museum for a few months as an honor to stay in the museum for a little while for people to see as they're in and out. So also on Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. we have our Quilting Family Day. And what that means is quilters from the Cherokee Blossom Quilt Guild will be set up throughout the exhibit hall, and they will be doing quilting demonstrations of applique, embroidery, quilting, piecing, all that kind of stuff, just so you can actually see, the hands-on, what it looks like to get a quilt from fabric to final product.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's a fun day and a fun family day. And quilting is, it's a very old craft. Susan, do you know how old quilting is or how far it goes back?
Quilting is as old as human beings. The traditional definition of a quilt is 3 layers with a layer in between, but there's some variances to that. But it started as a using up all your scraps and using what you had left over from making clothing. So the first true quilts or piecing was done, you took a little bit of furs that you weren't going to put on your body and use as clothing and put them together, or fabrics that were made. The biblical coat of many colors was probably one of the first historical quote-unquote quilts, putting the pieces together. Of course, in the United States, quilting was brought over from the old world to the United States with the original settlers. So it is as old as human beings are.
I've got a quilt that my great-grandmother quilted, and you're talking about using old scrap pieces of fabric. It's actually got an old quilt within the quilt, and it's really heavy. If you're extremely cold, that's the quilt you want to cover up with, because the thing weighs so much.
Yes.
And I would love to know what's inside of it, the quilt what it looks like on the inside.
That happened more often than not because they were utility more than beauty, but I've had some where you find beautiful works on the inside. There's some that when they use the newspapers to piece the thing on, they leave the newspapers in because it made it heavier. If an old quilt was starting to wear out, they'd put a new cover on it and use the old one. And sometimes I've heard of some that had 5 layers, and you think about all the women and all the work that went into all the piecing and the history. It's just an unreal history that you can.
Yes.
You wonder what life they went through and where those quilts went and what wagon train they were on and that kind of thing.
It's so interesting. Now you offer classes at your shop.
Yes, we've got all from beginner to advanced. Actually, this month we have a beginner quilting that will last for 5 sessions, not 5 weeks, because it's every other week, and we send them home with homework. And we've got an introduction to stabilizer, which brings in the applique and embroidery people. We have some block of the month, so people come in once a month and do a particular quilt. And then we have clubs. We've got AccuQuilt Club and Stash Busters Club, which is just a fun thing, and they share ideas. And so we have a lot going on, and sometimes it keeps me hopping. But anybody that needs help or questions, or we help daily. So it's a lot more teaching than just being a retail establishment.
Okay, and anything can be quilted, right? Like if you come up with an idea for a pattern,
yes,
that you could create, and you were talking about your younger quilters that you've got now, and they seem to be having a great time quilting, and you want to talk a little bit about some of the patterns that are trending now. And
Well, the trending thing is, well, this is an example of a modern quilt, and as you see, there's a lot of open space. This quilt was pieced by Jackie Corey, who is an art quiltist in the area here, and then the quilting, the actual quilting, which is the sewing the 3 layers together, was done by Russ Adams, who is Murphy, North Carolina, and he's nationally known. I don't know if he's internationally, but people from all over the country send him stuff to do. This is one of his mediumly complicated quilting. But the trending is a lot of open space so you can see the quilting itself, using modern colors, and not a lot of traditional piecing patterns.
okay,
The modern quilters, there's a lot of young quilters. It's almost like the grandmother's age and then the granddaughters and the 60s, 70s people born that were teenagers then. A lot of it was missed, like that generation in between there. But the resurgence came up with the bicentennial, and then a huge resurgence. And I have people come in the store and they said, well, I thought quilting was dead. No, it just is going more and more and more each year, and there's new things all the time coming out.
okay, that's exciting. And this quilt, is that hand quilted or machine
No,
quilted?
this is machine quilted. There's a lot of people say, well, you can't, a quilt, there's arguments, you have to do everything by hand, and then there's others that do everything by machine. If we waited to do everything by hand, would maybe one quilt a year get done. So people are wanting to get a lot done so they can give a lot. There's a lot of charity quilts being given away. So the Russ is a extraordinary. He does a machine, and it's like painting with thread.
Right.
It's his own art put into there, and but you can do the same thing with hand. And the class that they're doing at the museum tonight is stitching it by hand and putting it together. And
Okay. Well, it's a beautiful pattern
Yeah.
that you can see the intricate detail that he has there. I want to get back to Joy real quickly before we have to close the show. What else have you got going at the Museum Center?
Well, we have the quilt show, of course, this weekend, March 12th through 14th, opening Thursday, March 19th for our members only opening reception, and then opening to the public on Friday, March 20th. We have a new temporary exhibit called Kirbet El Makatir, History of a Biblical Site. And it is a biblical archaeology exhibit. We have about 42 historic archaeological artifacts from Israel. We are one of only 3 institutions in the United States approved to get this exhibit. It was a long task to get the approval through Israel, but we were able to do that because Lee University students and professors have actually participated in the dig, and we're really excited about this exhibit. We've actually installed a brand new exhibit gallery in our lobby. It's a beautiful space, and it's going to house these incredibly unique pieces, and we're going to do a lot of activities and programs and events throughout the year to support this exhibit and this topic of archaeology.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. That I want to go come see
Yeah.
that. Well, I want to thank both of you for being here today. And if people want to have questions or want to get in touch with you, they just need to visit the Museum Center. You want to give the website and phone number one more time?
For the Museum Center, it's www.museumcenter.org, and the phone number at the museum is 339-5745, and you can ask for Joy. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Okay. And Susan?
it's www.hiderhangout.com and 423-715-2908, and we answer any questions that they have.
Okay. That's great. Well, thank you. It's been a great show. I hope our audience has enjoyed learning a little bit more about quilting and what's going to be coming up at the Museum Center at 5 Points. And we want to congratulate Miss Joy. She's also recently engaged, and we're excited for her. And also congratulations to Tennessee Christian Preparatory on their big basketball win. We're glad you've joined us, and we will see you next time on WTNB Today.